Oh, hello there. We don't have the fancy Stanley Cup playoffs audio, video banner anymore, Greg Wyshynski, because the Stanley Cup playoffs are over. The playoffs are over.
Typing away, trying to hype the show, and I was waiting for...
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, and there was none of that, because the playoffs are in fact over. I am doing the show from the Aria Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada, which has been my home away from home for the last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And after the show, I will be rushing to the airport for a series of connecting flights to bring me back to see my children and my dog, not on a FaceTime call, which is quite a novelty over the last 2 months.
Yes, you get to reacquaint yourself with your family. Oh, I remember you. What was your name again? Hey, listen, congratulations to the Carolina Hurricanes. There's a lot to get to with the Hurricanes. As far as Stanley Cup stories go, this Stanley Cup final was loaded, and we're going to spend a lot of time today talking about the Carolina Hurricanes. We should park some time too to talk about a lot of the issues coming out of the Vegas Golden Knights, because there are many, and they start with the head coach. But initial thoughts here before we really get going on the program. As I look at the Carolina Hurricanes, one of the things that is quite spectacular about it is Rod Brind'Amour is probably the biggest star on this team. Like, this is the team that superstars forgot. Like, when we talk about team and team sports, generally by the time you get around to the Stanley Cup final, there's a Barkov and a Tkachuk and a Vasilevsky and a Kucherov and an Eichel and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar. Like, there are superstars that you attach to. With all due respect to all the players on the Carolina Hurricanes, and I mean this as a compliment, there are no superstars that stand out here. Like, this is the definition of a team as we talk about what a team is. Sebastian Aho is excellent. Logan Stankoven is going to be a really good player in this league for a really long time. Taylor Hall has won the Hart Trophy, for crying out loud. But there's no superstars. I think that Jacob Slavin is a superstar, but as far as like fame and everybody knows him, no superstars here. This is a team. This is a capital T team.
So this is an interesting chicken or the egg argument, actually. I'll get to Rod in a second, because I cannot... I have many words for Rod. But the thing you've described, though, like, part of that is Rod. Part of that's the system. Part of that is how they play. And the way they play is so suffocating and so dominating that people don't want to watch it. And I know that as a Devils fan. Like... Are you telling me Patrick Elias wouldn't have been one of the biggest stars in the league were it not for the way the Devils played? I mean, for reals. And so when you look at this team and you look at what they are, I mean, Slavin should be Victor Hedman. And Seth Jarvis should be Braden
No, he
Point.
plays a different game.
And Sebastian
Aho. Plays a different game. Maybe,
But from a hype standpoint, Marek, the point is that they play a system that doesn't accentuate how good they could be in totality, and then they play in Raleigh. And those are the two reasons why these players aren't put on a pedestal of stardom like others around the league. I mean, let me give you the best example. Jordan Staal, captain, wins the Conn Smythe. Everybody's on his tip last night, except for me and a few other voters, which we'll get to later. He's never won the Selke. Like, despite being one of the biggest hyped defensive forwards of the last 20 years, he's never won the Selke. Now, that's probably because of Patrice Bergeron and Ante Kopitar and Alexander Barkov, but it's also because he plays in Raleigh and he plays for the Carolina Hurricanes, and he doesn't get the respect that other people get. So I do think it's an interesting chicken or the egg argument, which is that Brind'Amour is the biggest star in the team, partially because the system they play means that Brind'Amour has to be the biggest star in the team. Let me say one thing briefly about Rod.
Okay.
Tom Dundon has said this a couple times, the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes. He said, no more free lunches. No, he said. We're
cutting
when Rod was hired as when Rod was hired as coach, and then I talked to Dundon last night on the ice after they won the cup. He used this phrase both times, which is that Rod Brind'Amour is our greatest asset, and that's not only in the sense that he's an amazing coach, but find me another coach in this league that loves his organization as much as Rod Brind'Amour does, who bleeds for his organization as much as Rod Brind'Amour does, who became the 7th person in the history of the National Hockey League and the first since Toe Blake in the 1950s.
Who are you?
To be a player and a coach that lifted the Stanley Cup for the same prize. Like, that is the thing about Rod that will go down in history is the fact that he loves the team that he's a part of and has been a part of for all but 2 of their playoff victories as either a player or a coach. Some of my favorite stats of all time. There have been 2 games in the history of the Carolina Hurricanes that they've won in the postseason that Rod Brind'Amour has not been a part of in some way.
Can you say Toe Blake again, but slower, Greg Wyshynski? All of a sudden, you're turning into the historian on the podcast here. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that deep cut and that pull with Toe Blake here. Let's get to a couple of things here. First of all, the program. The Blueprint is powered by FanDuel. Download the app today and play your game on FanDuel. Coming up in the program, more from Greg Wyshynski from ESPN and ESPN.com. Everything Carolina. Like, there's going to be a whole lot of it today. Aaron Ward is going to stop by the program. Of course, former Carolina Hurricanes Stanley Cup winner back in 2006. Mike Maniscalco is the play-by-play voice of the Carolina Hurricanes. He will be here, and we're going to get into the minutia of all of it, although there's a lot of big stories. And there's one here that I wonder about now, which we'll probably get into over the next few weeks, months, and dare we say maybe over the next season, which is, I think, a story that the Florida Panthers have gone through, and I think the Carolina Hurricanes may end up going through the exact same thing as well. 16-3 is an incredible run. It truly is. Like, we've just seen, and I do understand, like, the way that I've framed watching Carolina Hurricanes hockey, because I like the way they play, but I wonder whether it's because I'm invested in those players, because I really like those players. I really do. I have a lot of time for a lot of those guys. But when you look at the Carolina Hurricanes and you look at what they've been able to do this season, a couple of things, you start to strip it away, a couple of things become really interesting. And I do want to ask you about Jordan Staal, but I want to ask you about Taylor Hall too. Now, Taylor Hall yesterday did something that no one, as you went on your Toe Blake little diatribe there, I'm going to throw a Taylor Hall at you. We're kind of reversing roles here. Taylor Hall did something yesterday that no one in the history of hockey has ever done. Do you know what that is? No one in the history of the game. Taylor Hall is the only player in the history of the NHL, which is Greg Wyshynski, our noted historian who referenced Toe Blake 5 minutes ago, will tell you goes back to 1917. And in that time, there's only been one player who has been selected first overall, who won the Hart Trophy and won the Stanley Cup with 3 different teams.
With 3 different teams.
Drafted by the Oilers, Hart with the Devils, Cup with the Hurricanes. And I was kind of hoping that he was going to win the Conn Smythe Trophy as well, because that does sound even more profound. Hart Trophy, Stanley Cup, and drafted first overall by the Oilers. But like, when you talk about like weird career arcs, and he talked about this on the ice yesterday, Taylor Hall is just put before us one of the most interesting careers that I think we've ever seen in the NHL. Ever.
Yeah. Easily. I stole this from social media last night, but travel back in time in your DeLorean and tell a Edmonton Oilers fan around about 2015 that Taylor Hall and Connor McDavid will both have Stanley Cup. Like one will have a Conn Smythe, the other one will have a Stanley Cup, and neither of them will be with the in a winning effort for the Edmonton Oilers. So he really impressed me in the sense that I think over time he became a different player. The physicality with which he played in the playoff run for the Carolina Hurricanes was something remarkable. That's where
it gets really even weirder. He's turned into more of a physical player as his career has gone on.
Yeah, generally, he's like thicker, he's bigger, he's a power forward now.
Generally, and the noted exception is another Carolina Hurricane all this happened for him was Gary Roberts. Is like the other one who did that with his career. He went from not being able to do a chin-up at his combine to being one of the best power forwards, and it's a true story, to being one of the best power forwards in the NHL. But as Hall's career has gone on, and we see it now, he's a different player.
So let's talk about the Conn Smythe.
Go for it.
If you've seen the voting results, you know that I've written a minority report. I am in this dissenting class of Conn Smythe voters. Yes. I think there's about 3 or 4 of us that put Taylor Hall first on our ballots. And there's no wrong answer when it comes to Taylor Hall or Jordan Staal. I mean, Jordan Staal is the son around which all of the Carolina Hurricanes orbit. You ask any of them about the pace that he sets, the example he sets as captain, the things he does defensively leading up to a Stanley Cup final where he then scores 6 goals in 5 games. Like, he is extremely deserving of this award.
Yep.
I think there is recency bias, though. And you could make the argument that that's okay because the Stanley Cup final should count more than the other rounds. It's an argument that I've been making since 2003 when J.S. Jaguar stole Marty Berdore's Conn Smythe. But for me and for my friend Sean Gentili and a couple of others that have covered the Hurricanes for multiple rounds in these playoffs, I don't think there's a better Conn Smythe winner than Taylor Hall. Like, not only with the things that he did leading up to this series, and again, he's the second leading scorer on the team besides his line mate, Jackson Blake. A vote for Taylor Hall for me, Marek, is a vote for the reason the Carolina Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup, which is the Logan Stankoven, Taylor Hall, Jackson Blake line. When the Staal line wasn't scoring, when the Aho line was invisible, it was that line that provided all of the offense that they needed in front of the defense that they played. And for Hall to score the biggest goal of the clinching game to get them on the board first on the road, and for all of the things he did leading up to that series, I was quite confident in my vote for him to win the Conn Smythe, and I was actually really surprised there wasn't more support for him.
Do you think it was the 2-goal game that cemented it for Jordan Staal? Because here's a guy that won the Conn Smythe Trophy with 12 points. And I know that it's like, okay, well, shut down and face-offs, and I need the commissioner reference to face-offs when he handed off the Conn Smythe Trophy here too. But at the end of the day, it's 12 points. You've got a 12-point Conn Smythe Trophy winner, but he scored in every single game outside of Sunday night.
You have to remember that the Conn Smythe is a narrative award at the end of the day. And so the idea that the defensive forward steps up with the greatest offensive series of his life in the most important series of the in 20 years for the franchise, like that's not going to be lost on people. The fact that he's the guy that's been with the organization longer than anyone on the roster is not going to be lost on people. And while I don't know if this is necessarily part of the math for some of my colleagues, there's a beautiful symmetry to Jordan Staal winning the Conn Smythe in a year that a Rod Brind'Amour coach team won the Stanley Cup. Like, he's basically Brind'Amour 2.0. He's the team captain. He's the guy who fashioned himself into one of the best defensive forwards in the NHL. Oh, and by the way, he's still pretty good offensively when you need him to be. Like, he's like the perfect sort of proxy for Rod Brind'Amour in a lot of ways. And so it makes sense that he wins the Conn Smythe. I just think that, like, when you start to kind of like pull back the layers of this team and get under the hood and figure out why they won, it's that Stankoven Hall Blake line. Like, that is the heartbeat of this run. So beyond the coach.
Here's the other wrinkle to throw into it too. If it's going to be an award that is won by a defensive forward for what he was able to do, could you not make the case then that outside of that one awful game that Slavin had in Game 1 against the Montreal Canadiens, Jacob Slavin could have won this award and maybe should have won this award?
I don't think so. Like, again, I've covered this team for multiple rounds. I think Slavin was ordinary to the point where people were wondering if he was injured earlier in the playoffs. It wasn't simply just the Montreal game, it was other games as well. That being said, I was on the ice last night watching the Hurricanes party with the cup for 3 reasons. Taylor Hall scoring the first goal. Yep. Brandon Bussey playing the best game of his life in the single most important moment of his life. Because people were like, hey, what's the scenario for there being a Game 7? I said there's 2 scenarios. One is that Carolina is impacted by either the travel or the fact the cup was going to be in the building, or that Brandon Bussey has a bad game. And he had the opposite of a bad game. He was awesome. Spectacular last night.
Sure was.
And then the third reason was Slavin. Slavin was... Watch the Hall goal. Slavin has a chance to pinch. He decides not to. He rolls back into defensive coverage. He makes the play to force a turnover, and then he sets up Hall down the ice with a pass. Like, name me the defensemen who do that in this league. It's one. It's Jacob Slavin.
Okay, let me ask you about that goal, because I was texting with someone about this last night. As every defender on the ice in the first period early is looking to like establish their gap, That's pretty cheeky of Taylor Hall to be hanging up high looking for a breakaway.
That's what they do.
Behind the Vegas defense like that. No, but when everybody's just like, get in my gap, there's Taylor Hall saying, nope, I'm hanging out here by the blue line.
Both of these teams like to do that. Both of these teams love a stretch pass. And part of the reason why Carolina flipped the series is that in the first 4 games of the series, the Vegas Golden Knights in the second period outscored them 9-1 doing that very thing. And even like after they figured it out in game 5, they still slipped a pass through to Mark Stone with one of those long stretch passes. But in games 5 and 6 in the second period, Carolina outscored them 3-0. Like they really figured out how to defend those long stretch passes. Taylor Hall, I think I mentioned on the show, told me it was kind of like it was. They thought of it like at the NFL. Like they felt like they had to have a nickel package back there to basically defend those passes because that's what the Knights do offensively. But Slavin was so good last night. There are certain times as a hockey fan when you are so confident in how well a player is playing that every time he's around the puck or every time he's on the puck, you're like, I don't have to worry. Like he's just got it. And every single time Slavin was making a play last night, you didn't even have to look. I didn't even look up on my laptop. Like I knew the play was getting shut down. Like there was nothing they could do against Slavin last night. It was one of the single most dominant performances by a defensive defenseman I've ever seen live. And I don't think he deserved the Conn Smythe, but he's the reason they won Game 6.
What is the lesson you think that teams will try to learn / ape from the Carolina Hurricanes? Like I look at the construction of this team and I say to myself, like, I've been consistent on this. I think all the way through. There's a very specific type of player that can succeed with this team, with Rod Brind'Amour. And that is you have to be athletic. You have to be able to think quickly. Those are the two main things because that, especially defensively, playing in their own zone, that is hard and that wears on you as a player. You know, one of the first things Taylor Hall did when he joined the Carolina Hurricanes was talked about conditioning. Right. And they were just like, and you saw it in game 4 and all the way through to game 6. Like they were just a better conditioned team. They play a really tough style to play in their own zone. That is so exhausting. You know, Aaron Ward's going to stop by here in a couple of seconds. We'll ask him about it as a defender. But it's tough for everybody to play man on man. But so it's not as simple as, well, all of a sudden now our coach is going to have everyone playing man. Patrick Waugh did that with Colorado when he first took over. It lasted until Christmas, and then they had to go back. You can remember this, but I want to, and we'll ask Aaron here in a second. I do want to ask about how challenging it is and whether there's a unique style of player that succeeds in this system. But first, this segment is a presentation of Canadian Blood Services, who invites you to experience what giving feels like. In a world that can feel isolating and divided, blood and plasma donations offers something rare and fulfilling. Real connection, real purpose, real impact. Every summer, people across Canada get swept up in the excitement of the season, and donation routines can slip, but the need doesn't. This is a moment to rally together as a nation and for new donors to experience firsthand what you get when you give. At a moment when many Canadians are looking for positive ways to show up for each other, Canadian Blood Services is issuing an invitation to new donors. Fill every donation chair in the country this summer. Book at blood.ca through the Give Blood app or call 1-888-2-DONATE. I do it every 3 months. This one is a personal one for me. And the Stanley Cup is a personal issue for Stanley Cup winner Aaron Ward. Was there when the Carolina Hurricanes won this thing in 2006, and he joins us now. Aaron Ward, how are you?
I'm good. I didn't partake in the festivities downtown that lasted in the wee hours. I'm over 50 now, so I'm in bed by midnight.
Well, guess who did? Greg Wyshynski.
No, you're talking about over in Raleighwood, right there, Aaron?
Oh yeah.
I think. Listen, nobody burned a school bus, so I was obviously overshadowed by the Knicks celebration. But a good night to be had in Raleigh. Like the scenes from the arena were awesome, and those fans deserve it. I mean, as much as we talked about, Jordan Martinook said something about Rod Brind'Amour having scar tissue. Like we all share the same scar tissue. The guys that have been on this team and trying to break through the ceiling of the Eastern Conference for as long as they have. Those fans have it too, man. It's been a long 20 years between championships for those fans. A lot of heartbreak inherent in some of these playoff runs. So I felt really good for them last night.
Yeah, that scar tissue is patience. If you think about the way this team's been constructed, it's been the last 5 or 6 years. There's been an expectation that this team was supposed to win. And as you see them bow out to Boston and bow out to Florida, there's that head scratch component to something is clearly missing. What it is, whether it's like a tactical approach, whether it's not a fit for the players, the system, whatever it was over time, I think the fan base stuck with it. Testimony to Roddy Brind'Amour to sticking to what he is and what he's all about, and maintaining that style of play for this group. Dundon having a level of patience to stick with it also. I mean, listen, he's a businessman, and when things don't go well, businessmen have a tendency to make change rapidly and a little bit knee jerk, and to show a level of patience. And I mean, listen, you can fall back and say, I heard the stats yesterday that Carolina Hurricanes, when Gary was getting out the Stanley Cup, the number of regular season wins, it's the most in, I don't know, what, 5 or 6 years. Okay, so there's that. But that can only last so long in an environment where in pro sports you have to put up championships, or basically your expiration date is done. So that scar tissue is patience, and that's patience from the guys that decide to stick around, like the Jordan Stahls and the Martinukes and anybody else that came in years ago and saw the potential, but it just wasn't realized for whatever reason.
What was Rod Brind'Amour like as a player on your team? By the way, like, if I'm Rod Brind'Amour, I can't wait to get my shirt off every single chance I get. Like, that thing came off quick in the room. Like, oh, you really want me to do this? Okay, I'm just torn up like a bad report card. Check this out. That's light matches off my abs.
Well, did someone rip it off him, though? Did someone rip it first?
Somebody ripped him off. Someone ripped the shirt for him. I said last night, if they ever put a statue of Brind'Amour in front of the arena, it should be him kind of like ripping open a suit, Superman style, and just his 8-pack, so it covers the Rod to Bod thing and the coach thing.
Technically, he went to Michigan State University for a year, so you could take like it's a Greek god kind of mascot, so you could take the Spartan mascot, stick his head on it, and it'd be a true to life. Here's the thing about Roddy. So you asked the original question. Who he is in those interviews when he shows a level of caring, right, and a level of investment in his players is the same way he was as a captain. Now, as a captain, he was forced to be less vocal. Actually, as a coach, he's forced to be more vocal. As a captain, he was very kind of surgical in when and where he stepped in, both vocally and with his presence and by his actions. So Roddy is who he presents himself to be. That's why when I saw the shirt come off and there was a celebration, like it's like a fun thing, right? You know how serious Roddy is. I guarantee that every single player that played for him wanted that shirt to come off, almost as like a final, like, not only do we just win, but check out our head coach, because he is like, that's who guided us.
My dad's tougher than your dad. Watch, check this out. There is very much that element. But one of the things, what we were talking about before he came on was, there's a certain kind of player that succeeds here with the Carolina Hurricanes. Focusing on the back end, which you would know intimately. If you're someone that plies his trade with cross checks to the back in front of the net, there's probably not room at the end here for you. But if you're athletic, you can move your feet and you can think, then there's a lot of room for you. And I think we have to, as much as we talk about Rod Brind'Amour, I think Tim Cleese and Jeff Daniels as well for what they do, because as we were talking about a couple of podcasts ago, everybody just gets better there.
Yeah.
Everybody gets better. But they have to embrace the environment. You got to want to be here. And the cool part was, like, so you see, listen to these interviews, and when guys are most transparent is when they're tired and they let their guard down. That's usually after they won, and they're pretty like blatant about expressing how they feel. And you look at Gostisbehere in one of his interviews yesterday saying, like, I came back. He knew what they had here, and he had a desire to be here. And the amazing part is, we'll take the D-Corps, for example. Slavin played all-world last night, but Slavin was not Conn, Smythe, Slavin through the Stanley Cup playoffs, which is a testimony to the fact that, as I look at that group, Gostisbehere and Walker were the two best defensemen to the Montreal series. I mean, the idea that Gostisbehere and actually it was Walker who ran over Dobish, and he's in the offensive zone. That specific game, he was in the zone, rushing the puck up 4 separate times. It is it's not a motley crew. I mean, they have names back there, and guys are fully capable. But the amazing part is, they're all able to move their feet. They're all able to play offensive. They're all able to play physical. I mean, look at the dish out that Walker gave on Carlson. I mean, these guys understand what the job is. They execute it incredibly well, and they're not going to go down and specifically maybe Slavin, yes, clearly for his accolades, but the rest of them, they're there and they perform a duty without expecting like a major pat in the back or needing headlines, and they do an amazing job at it. And they're not all the same kind of style player.
Greg?
I wanted to. That's a great point. By the way, you can make the argument the Walker hit on Carlson is like one of the top 3 most important moments of the Cup final. Like the golden. That's the thread
Andrew
you
Ladd
pull
taking out Rolison and Andrew Ladd taking.
Oh, there you go. That's right. There you go.
I'll put it out there.
But Aaron, I wanted to ask you because you bring up a great point about the defense core. Like Gostisbehere is playing PP1, but he's also a third pairing defenseman on this roster. And when you look up and down, it's like. Taylor Hall comes to Carolina. He's not playing with Aho. He's playing with 2 kids. Ehlers signs a 4-year mega contract with them as a free agent. He's on their checking line. But like all of these guys, and I think when Marek was talking before you hopped on, like what is the lesson to be learned from the Carolina Hurricanes? It's kind of like know your role and shut your mouth, as The Rock once said. Like all of these guys kind of know where to fit on this team, and they just play their role. Like that's got to be one of the secrets to their success is egos checked at the door, and you just do what you need to do for them to win.
I think the most fun is looking at this roster and getting everybody's little story, right? So Carolina, everybody thought, all right, for Carolina to go to the next step, to finally win, they got to get like we lost out on Gensel. We lost out on Rantanen, and wait a second, we're bringing in Ehlers. Like, this is a Winnipeg team that is recently disappointed. They're supposed to, like, it's almost as if he's transferring from one disappointment to another environment where, well, why are you bringing that here? And instead, he like emerges as a key piece for this team on a third line, right? And then you go to Stankoven. Like, the storyline with Stankoven for me was, I live here. The number of people that texted me, like, I had the inn and I'm sitting there with Tulsky knowing what's going on, like, on the surface, you look like you lost at Rantanen. But the truth is, as time goes on, what you may realize is Stankoven was a better piece and a better fit for this team than the Rantanen would have been. Yes, he has an amazing skill set. And people are going to come to me and say, like, you're high saying that about Rantanen. No. If you look at the philosophy of this team about the greater good, you have to fit. The foundation before they came into the playoffs was set. And that is why this team, when approached with adversity, was already ready to answer the bell. You got punted in game 1 against Montreal. You leaned on the fact that you had a bunch of time off, and you came back and basically stomped them in the next few games. All right? You just had to find yourself. And it's the collection of players that fit. And you didn't, okay, again, your top line of Aho, Svechnikov, and Jarvis, I'm not saying non-existent, but again, another group of players who are not Conn Smythe-worthy, right? And so what did you have to fall back on? Your depth. You had to fall back on your system. You had to fall back on experience and guys that knew that, okay, you're going to move some energy up. You're going to move Martinic up to the top line, move Jarvis down, and all of a sudden it manifests itself into something that is a catalyst for them, right? All these pieces, everybody knows their role and will accept it. And if you have guys in the team, and this is where I go, maybe Rantanen want to play a different style, maybe Gensel might want to play a different style. You have 12 guys understand exactly what our collective intent is here. You're going to be successful.
So I'm glad you got us there. So with Stankoven, I want to take this into a conversation about Eric Tulsky here. As you well know, there would have been a lot of general managers who said, "Okay, it's not working out. We're going to double down here. We're gonna try to force this thing to work with Rantanen and Carolina." Instead, and Tulsky heard it from every corner. Tulsky's an idiot, should have known, should have got insurances they was going to sign long-term. What a stupid move. Rookie general manager, dummy analytics guy. We saw and heard all of it. He swallows his ego, makes a trade with the Dallas Stars, which to your point, like a lot of people in Carolina, I'm just like, who is Logan Stankoven? Right? People that know who Logan Stankoven is.
You're trading a guy who's 6'5"
for this
not
guy?
6'5". You're like,
yes.
We're getting smaller? Yeah.
But
I was like that.
Here's the thing about it. And there's like, not only do you get Logan Stankoven, as part of all of that, you end up with Taylor Hall. You use one of the picks for K'Andre Miller. And here's the thing. You've won a Stanley Cup, and you still have a first-round pick.
Okay, wait, remind me again. Didn't Jankowski come with that?
No, I think he was separate, but to your point, Aaron, though, like, and that also by not paying Rantanen, by not paying Gensel, by not paying Natchez, who you instead trade for Rantanen. Now you've got the cap space to sign Ehlers. So, you could say Ehlers, Hall, Stankoven, Keandre Miller. Yeah. All 4 guys just won a cup last night. All 4 guys were the fruits of the Rantanen do-si-do.
Jankowski was for a 5th-round pick in Nashville. A 5th.
Okay, all right. It came in around the same time last year, which he caught my eye right off the bat because all of a sudden he had something and a trust from Brind'Amour that once you establish that, you're going to get used and put in an ideal position. So going back exactly to what you're talking about, and analytics. It's again why I keep preaching the 50-50 eye test versus numbers. And if you believe something to be true based on analytics, look at the eye test. And if the eye test is something you believe, go see if the numbers support it. This is where I think the Carolina Hurricanes have evolved. I work in the analytics world with SMT and the player and puck tracking technology. I was at an analytics conference in Colorado, the Halo conference, and for some reason I got a lot of questions about the Carolina Hurricanes, even though I'm not employed by them. And they talked about the systems and analytics, and one of the kind of the main themes that emerged was they were all shocked at how amazingly constructed the team is in terms of fit, complementary pieces, like when to know when to put Jackson Blake in the National Hockey League on a line with Taylor Hall and Stankoven, and where in there lies the success, because you've got a creativity. And Hall almost kind of changed. He almost Yzerman. I'll clarify this. Yzerman changes his game. Remember in Yzerman, 97, I was there, and he became a well-rounded player. Hall had to be the prick on that line, right? Yep. So you think about the Ottawa series, he garnered a lot of attention. His physicality and his impact in that end was something they've missed so sorely for a very long time, and there he is. And so that guy kind of, from a veteran standpoint, conceptually understood it, he grasped it, and he implemented it, and he was such a valuable component. The Jordan Staal, right? So how everything fits, this was like an evolution and a process that Carolina was patient with and put together. The funniest thing too for me is the departure of the Carolina Hurricanes. This is going to be lost in all of this. The trade of the trade deadline last one, Delorier. Right? Everybody's like, why the hell did we pick that guy up? One game. And I didn't think he was going to play in the playoffs. And he shows up in Ottawa. And do you see the confidence your team plays with all of a sudden? Like, oh, you want to start this? I'll introduce you to this guy. Have some fun with it. Yeah. And they played with a level of confidence that if it's ever needed, it's there.
Here's what I really do wonder about. Because go back 1 year, we were talking about how the Florida Panthers bullied the Carolina Hurricanes. I can still remember watching Tkachuk and Aho go back to the bench. And there was one mic pickup where Tkachuk's essentially saying, I'm going to do this all series long and you're not going to do a thing about it. You're going to do nothing. And none of these guys are going to do anything. And you know what? Tkachuk was right. Carolina did nothing about it. Nothing. This year, I'm glad you mentioned the Nick Delorier pickup at deadline. This year was the one, and we saw this with Taylor Hall and how he initiated Conn. They couldn't wait to give the cup to Nick Delorier last night.
And people are gonna hit on us on us talking about this. You don't know the value of the mental state of a team at this stage of the season. If you realize in the moment it's too late and you're missing something, that sits in your mind, the belief. But all of a sudden, if you know, hey, there's one bullet in the chamber, it's there. We never have to shoot it. But if you want to play that game, and here's the truth about that Florida series, which happened differently this year. If someone wanted to beat the Carolina Hurricanes and felt like they could, they would have gone back to the series last year and figured out that Ekblad and Jones basically egregiously picked every single time the puck went in the zone. They couldn't get there to initiate any level of forecheck or adversity. And this year, Carolina had, when Montreal started to do it, Roddy talked about after game 2, we've made one tweak. We made a tactical change. I'm not sure what the tactical change was, but I did notice that offensive zone time increased with Carolina Hurricanes. They were more adaptive based on what they learned from Florida last year as opposed to this year. You went, 16-3 in the playoffs. That's ridiculous. And your 2 losses came in the final round. Like, you just trucked through the East. That says a lot about the reputation, the abilities, and the character of this team and how they got this done.
Yeah, and your other loss came after the longest layoff between 2 rounds in 107 years. Like,
Yes.
you know, your clock was a little off on that game. First of all, it's okay you brought up Nick Delorier. You know what podcast you're on. You know that we are the podcast where people punching faces is something we talk about occasionally.
And
Secondly,
the All-Star
you
game.
brought up Tulsky before. And I wrote my big essay at the end of the Stanley Cup final this year was the delightfully titled "The Jock, the Nerd, and the Stanley Cup," because they truly are hockey's odd couple. Like Rod the Bod, 35-year NHL lifer, and the guy who, when you guys won the Cup in 06, was a nanotech scientist in Washington State. It is unbelievable how well they work together to kind of craft this championship. And I think a lot of it, like you said before, is, and Rod's spoken about this, Eric's willingness to think about, consider, ask questions about Rod's experiences, what he sees. It's not simply just relying on a spreadsheet, but getting to really understand sort of the essence of what it takes to win in this league beyond the numbers. It's an amazing partnership, and it resulted in them winning.
I got a great story for you. My introduction to Eric Tulsky. So I work with Andrew Thomas, Dr. Andrew Thomas. He's leading up our analytics group at SMT. Shane Kelly is our project and product manager. So the three of us go in to present the analytics platform to Tulsky, and for 45 minutes, not a single response, not a word. And I'm just, at this point, like, I'm turning beet red and I'm sweating. And this is like our first presentation. I'm like, this is supposed to be good. These guys are analytics people, not a single word. And I walk out of there and I'm demoralized. And they're like, what's wrong? I'm like, he didn't say a damn word, not a friggin' word. He goes, that's good. He goes, why? Because if he had something to say and he had questions, he's picking it apart and he doesn't believe in it. And I'm like, what? They're like, the fact that he was silent, he was absorbing, he's intaking, he's like an observer, and that's how his mind works.
Yeah.
And that for me is, I think, again, over time, patience, the coming together of Roddy's mentality, Tulsky's mentality. It's where I talk to you about the idea of the 50-50. You got a guy who played the game and has a feel for the environment, what he sees, what he feels, the tension in the room. And you have a guy that is a hockey guy that's a tire with still treads on it. Right? We're not recycling the same old ideas. We're not putting it on and putting a guy in there that had past success, but the tread is worn off. And only under ideal situations will you get traction. This guy, under adversity, under problems like, the Natchez and the Rantanens, he finds unique ways to resolve the issue. And that's the amazing part about having a guy that thinks outside the box. He might be a little different, not prototypical of what the hockey environment may. I mean, listen, I'm around here. I hear all the jokes about, all the patents and no cups. Well, guess what? That joke's over. They got a cup.
It's 100%. I've always sort of made the joke that like Eric Tulsky is supposed to be the smartest guy on the planet, but how smart is the guy that chose the job that pays the worst out of all the things that he could have chosen to do? And he's chosen this because I think that, like, honestly, Aaron, like, I think that he looks at hockey like it is a big puzzle and it's also a challenge. So I've been using this example. Greg's heard me say it before. If I told you there was a team in the NHL that let go of Brett Pesce and Brady Shea and Dougie Hamilton and Brent Burns and Dmitry Orlov, you'd probably say, well, I bet their defense sucks now. Right. They might have the best defense in the NHL. And I think it's because what Tulsky does is, to your point at your meeting, like, he'll sit and he'll think and he'll say, okay, someone's leaving. Now this is my turn to do my job. There's been a lot of general managers that we've seen say like, oh, we can't let Pesce walk because then we're going to have to find another Pesce. So we're just going to re-sign him. But Tulsky looks at it like, it's my challenge as a general manager now to go find someone that's going to fill that spot. Who's going to take Brent Burns' spot? Who's going to take Orlov's spot? Like, that's how he looks at it. He embraces what he does. To be honest, just to be blunt, he embraces the job of being a general manager, which shouldn't be a baffling concept.
And working with the hand you are dealt with your head coach. Here's how your head coach wants to play. All right. Take that into your philosophical approach to how you want to construct your team and understand. I heard you guys talking about here's the conditioning. Here's the style of play. Yes. Here's the willingness. Here's the character. Here's the past. and do all those things fit. And I'm not worried if Pesce walks or Hamilton walks and who in our Eastern Conference might sign him and how it might come back to bite us. I'm focused on our team. I'm gonna minimize the noise around me. The great part about Carolina is like this: we are the most biased hockey environment in existence. I mean, Toronto might be up there with us, but Carolina, like, it's just us and there's 31 other teams. We don't really care about them. We're just unifocused on the Carolina Hurricanes, and they are so systematic and what's the word I'm looking for? Like so, like I don't even know. They already know before they make the move where they plan to go. They have a system and a plan, and they follow the plan. And there's no knee jerk trying to satisfy this reporter who's criticizing you or this part of the fan base that hates this part of you. Everybody's on board and pulling in the same direction.
And to your point though, Aaron, like look across the ice last night at Vegas, who I know we're going to talk about in a second. Like, everything Carolina does is with purpose and with the purpose of trying to fit the system their coach coaches. Vegas goes shopping for the shiny toy. Like is there a reality in the world where Thomas Hertl should have been a great fit for a Bruce Cassidy team or a John Tortorella team? No. But he was available and he was a name and they could get him. And so I think Kelly's on supermarket sweep. He's just throwing stuff in the shopping cart. And I'm not sure if
are you trying to tell me something like firing a coach with 8 games left might be like a I don't know.
I'm trying to tell you that the handshake deal that Rasmus Anderson has with Kelly McCrimmon should have been ink on a contract, because I think he's going to get shot into the sun. They go out and get all the guys that are available, but I don't always think it's not with the purpose of an Eric Tulsky. It's not with the purpose of the Carolina Hurricanes, where all these pieces, like we talked about, fit so snugly into what Rod's trying to do. And then you look at Vegas, and it's just like it's a bunch of guys with names that we know, but they all don't fit together like they should.
All right, so Vegas has a boldness and a brashness to both their team and their approach and their management style and their ownership. Carolina is highly secretive, quiet, likes to do things leaking out. Doesn't really happen that very often with the Carolina Hurricanes. So yeah, the polarity of these two teams is not lost on me. Especially, I mean, you got Torts, who cost them a second rounder. Still wants to stir it up in the middle of the Stanley Cup play. Like, for me, if I'm ideally put in a situation like this, I'm embracing it. I'm trying to create fewer distractions for my teams, less questions like, hey, for guys, I know you're in the second or third round of the playoffs, you're trying to win the Stanley Cup, but how do you feel about your team losing the second rounder and your coach being fined $100,000? Like, all these things would never you can't transplant these distractions and put them in this environment currently in Raleigh, North Carolina. It wouldn't happen.
Got a couple of moments left with you here. I do want to get, because it is one of my favorite stories. I was just telling this story to Alan May not too long ago. One of my favorite Hockey Night in Canada Stanley Cup memories ever is you. And at the yes, and you know where I'm going with this one, I think too, Wardo. So at the end of in the final game, they have all these pre-shot pieces of all the members of the winning team. And in this case was Carolina. And what they're asking the players is, who was your favorite player growing up? So there's a lot of like Lemieux, Yager, like a lot of that, Gretzky, all these, and Aaron Ward, out of nowhere, Bob McGill.
Yep.
And we all went, and I remember watching, like, I love Big Daddy. He's a wonderful guy. Awesome dude. You just won the Stanley Cup. And Aaron Ward, your favorite hockey player, Bob McGill. And I'm like, did I just hear that? And then I found out the story, and it's absolutely beautiful. Like, when I was in Penticton, Okanagan, I'm telling this story to whoever will listen. Can you tell the story of why you said on Hockey Night in Canada, when asked your favorite hockey player, you said Bob McGill?
He taught me humanity at like age 9. Like, he taught me that an athlete could have a relatability and a level of empathy for not just his teammates, but people in the sport and anybody else. So I'm out in Penticton, BC at the Okanagan Hockey School. The big name out there is Andy Moog. Andy Moog is kind of the headline player. And I go out all the way from Ottawa. Yeah, I'm out there from Ottawa. I'm with one of my coaches and one of my friends. So we go there, and we're there for 2 weeks. And this is the first time. My parents couldn't get me to go to sleepaway camp. They couldn't bribe me. So I'm going to this camp, and I've never been away from home. And the level of fear that I had at 9 when I got there, and the disdain for being here, and homesickness, like it was on steroids. And it was Bob McGill who in the moment looked at me and could see like something was up, and he took time. It's this whole movement we're talking about now on check on your teammates, but this is about a 9-year-old, and he says, "You're right." And I just decided to spilled the beans, and I said, "I'm homesick. I don't want to be here." And he sat down with me for probably 30 minutes and just talked to me. And he made me completely forget that I was away from home. He made me embrace the idea that I was there at a hockey camp to get better, to have fun, open my eyes to the opportunity of making some friends, enjoying the game, all of it. And his 30 minutes of just sitting down and being normal with a kid, it basically was ingrained in me that I want that to be me when I get older. If I ever, I mean, I don't know if I'm be successful at that point, but if I was ever going to be somebody, I was going to be Bob McGill. And I was not going to be the guy that walked by someone who maybe needed a pat in the back, a hug, or encouragement in the moment. So I always carried with me that Bob McGill was my guy. And so as we grew up, finally, Leafs got on global. I got to watch them more. I got to watch Big Daddy. It was a big thrill. Like I only watched Bob McGill. There was a lot of bigger name players there, but I was watching Bob McGill play. Yeah. And my biggest thrill is I got to play against Bobby in an exhibition game. I think it was in '93. I think it was in Chicago, and I was in Detroit, and I was a rookie, and I got to play against them. But I told Bob eventually, I let that go in '97, '98. I was telling him, but yeah, Bob McGill is what for me. Anybody in the environment of hockey should represent. We're a collective group. We should be for the greater good. And what an amazing human he is.
He's a great human being. Love him.
Great human being.
Is a beautiful, beautiful story. He's well known up here, placed in the Kawartha. He's on Jack's Lake. It's like he's just the night checks in all the time. Like a great.
I say all these nice things about him, but I haven't gotten an invite to his cottage. Bobby, it's kind of hot down here in Raleigh.
Talk to him, Corey Stillman. They're all up there. You know that whole set up there. They're all. There's another Stanley Cup champion from your team, Corey Stillman, who I still think should have won the Conn Smythe Trophy that year, but that's for another discussion.
Damn.
Aaron, thanks so much. It's not a hot take. He should have won. He was fantastic. Thanks so much as always, pal. You spent a lot of time with us today. Really appreciate it. Great stories.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Aaron
it.
Ward, Stanley Cup champion, 2006 Carolina Hurricanes.
Actually, the answer you were looking for was Chris Pronger should have won the Conn Smythe that year, more than anybody on the Carolina Hurricanes. Speaking of which, let me say this because I think I got to run to the airport in a second, but like, there's a lot of grave dancing going on with Mitch Marner right now because he didn't really produce in the last few games of the series. A lot of the minute he plays an Eastern Conference team, look what happens to him.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Come on. Like, he led the playoffs in scoring. He had a natural hat trick in the Stanley Cup final.
Let it go.
I know that I know that it's fun, and I know that it's cool, and I know it's a bunch of Leaf fans who have been taking out on the chin for 3 rounds, now all of a sudden being like, what if Marner? Eat your shit sandwich for praising this man. I still had him third on my ballot for the Conn Smythe. He had a great playoff.
Yeah.
His center, was injured in Game 5, in the first period of Game 5. That's going to probably affect his effectiveness.
Yeah.
I don't disagree that it wasn't the greatest last couple games of the series for Mitch Marner, but this man is Teflon in these playoffs. If you're going to take a run at Marner after the playoff he had,
no
come
way.
on.
Other guys.
You're just being petulant. You're just being a petulant little Leafs fan who, in his heart of hearts, knows that he would never have done this in Toronto. And he had a great playoff. And lay off Mitchie. He's not the reason this happened. Now, Eichel's the reason it happened. Go check the stats on how many goals Eichel has in like his last 35 playoff games. Mm-hmm. And I know he was close with a bunch of posts and pipes and things of that nature. And I know that he creates a lot of offense through assists to line mates. But as far as putting the puck in the net in the playoffs, if Eichel had these numbers and his name was Mitch Marner and he was in Toronto, they'd be coming after him with torches. So leave Mitch alone. It's not his fault.
Leave Mitch alone. But you got to get to the airport. So you say goodbye to those lovely drapes behind you. And we will talk to you. I don't know. You're back at some point this week, but safe travels home. And
no, I'll be back. I'll be back on Thursday, normal spot. And again, thanks to everybody for consuming the content. It was a really, really fun playoff, long run. Wrote some good stuff. Did some great stuff with you. We'll talk on Thursday.
Yeah.
And then by that time, I'll be ready to talk about the off season. Like someone was asking me about Gavin McKenna last night. I'm just like, shut up. I cannot do it right now.
Yet.
I need to go into a coma for like 2 days. Yeah, exactly.
I get it. All right. Safe travels home. There he is. Greg Wyshynski, ESPN and ESPN.com. With that, we get to the play-by-play voice of the Carolina Hurricanes, Mike Maniscalco, who joins me now to talk about the Stanley Cup champion Hurricanes. Mike, first of all, thanks so much for stopping by. Thanks for being patient. I wanted to make sure that Aaron Ward got in that beautiful story about Bob McGill and Okanagan hockey, and that's such a beautiful thing. But let's open up this one with you here. What is the lesson of the Carolina Hurricanes? Every year it's like, okay, a team wins the Stanley Cup, and it's like, okay, so what are these other teams going to try to emulate? How are they going to be successful? What's from your point of view? And you know this team a lot better than us. You're right there with it. What is the lesson of the Carolina Hurricanes?
That if you put in the work and believe in what you're doing, it pays off. And I know that's hokey, Jeff. I really do, but this is a team that when Rod Brind'Amour took over as the head coach 8 years ago, when people were talking about, the word culture gets thrown around a lot, he was talking about a work ethic and a standard of how you have to play and carry yourself. And, Aaron was talking about, Bob McGill and it's caring about others and putting that kind of feeling in the room. And that's what this team is. If you look at how this team acts off of the ice and interacts with each other, they're close. There's that. And again, you don't have to love everybody in order to win, but it certainly helps when you're willing to, all right, for this guy, I'm going to lay down in front of the shot, or I'm going to do this, or, I don't feel great today, but I'm going to find a B game to get to. And the lesson for I think everybody who's out there is, just because you don't win the whole thing doesn't mean that you're not doing good things and building your way to getting that way. And, honestly, for this run for the 8 years, you got to take a look at the teams that knocked Carolina out of the playoffs, Jeff. They went to the Stanley Cup final, right? Or they went to the conference final. It's not like they were getting beat in the first round. So for me, that's the lesson, that if you stick with it and you believe in what you're doing, it pays off. And this group, I hate using the word deserved. I really do. This group deserved to win the Stanley Cup.
It's an interesting, and I don't listen. You go 16-3, like you leave no doubt, right? Like there wasn't like one of those like, half a puck here, half a puck there, and they could have been out in the second round. Like no, like it was convincing, like all the way through the Eastern Conference and the Stanley Cup final. And it seemed as if did it feel this way to you, Mike? Because I really felt that Game 4 things changed for the Carolina Hurricanes, and you saw it right through the game where it felt like the Carolina Hurricanes really figured out how to play against Vegas. And you saw the confidence build and grow all throughout that game. And it was almost as if the Carolina Hurricanes said, okay, now we got it. I was speaking to TJ Oshie this morning on the Hockey Lifers podcast, and we're talking about playing Vegas. And he said when the Caps won the Stanley Cup, he said he knew in Game 1 that they were going to win, because he felt that they were already in the process of breaking. Guys were already yelling at each other. Guys had their head down on faceoffs. Guys would come to the bench and slouch. He's like, he would go back to the bench and say, guys, we've already broken them. And it seemed like in this series, Carolina started to break Vegas in Game 4. Do you see it the same way?
Close. I want to rewind it about a period or so back. I think it started to happen in the third period in Game 3 when they came back when they were down 4-0, and they scored 3 goals in 39 seconds. Yeah. And Vegas is thinking this game is over. We're on easy street. We're going to cruise to game number 4. And all of a sudden they're like, "What the hell? We got to keep playing." And then it goes to overtime. And I think the one thing, and I always joke, I owe Justin Williams $1 every time I say this. And it's so I think I owe him about $1 million. But he talked about in a playoff series, you have to let the opponent know how hard it is to beat you. And then you just got to weigh on them. And you wait until one of their legs gives out. And I think that when the Canes came back with 4 goals in the third period. Remember, it was the Mitch Marner show in the second period. I mean, it was
4 records.
I mean,
four records that game. 4 records. NHL records.
Unreal. I mean, we're doing stuff like, Wayne Gretzky hasn't done. That's what you're talking about, amazing things. And I just go back to that. And I think in that third period where Carolina, other teams could have just said, you know what, screw it, save the energy. We're going to move on to game 4. We'll scrap it. No, they just kept coming after him. And I can use one of my favorite lines. I've got all the lines for you right now, Jeff.
Let's go. Go for it. Today's the day.
In Rocky 2, when Apollo's manager tells him he doesn't want him to fight Rocky in the second fight. And all I have in my head is that line of, I've seen you beat this man like no man has been beaten before. And he kept coming after you. And that's what Carolina does. They keep coming after you. So I think the seeds of doubt were planted in that third period in game number 3. And it was a good win for Vegas to get the win. I think if they would have lost in overtime, giving up a 4-goal lead, I don't know if we get to a game 6. But I think that's where it started. And then game 4 was where Carolina played Carolina hockey all the way through for 60 minutes. And this is how hard it's going to be to win this series if you're Vegas.
It's I want to get ahead of ourselves here, and I will circle back to what we saw last night, but I want to make sure I got one thing in here, and that is what's next for the Carolina Hurricanes. And it's pretty easy to look at this roster and go they're going to run it back, right? They're going to run this thing back, and then I come back to this idea. Listen, Glenn Saylor would talk about this with the Oilers in the 80s when they were the best team in the universe, and he would say every year you have to change 10 to 15% just to keep it fresh. And we always talk so much about rings in the room, right? Rings in the room. You got to have rings in the room if you're going to win. Carolina's got a lot of rings in the room now. A lot of rings in the room. And how do you keep it fresh is bringing in guys that don't have rings. I've heard this from so many players that have won with the team that you need to have a mix of guys that have won once you've won the Stanley Cup and also younger players that haven't. Just in order to have that fresh inspiration for, what, this guy's never won it. That's why he's working like this. So whether it's Bradley Nadeau or whomever, do you see Carolina making many changes? Because one of the things that we've learned about Eric Tulsky is, and this is the lesson I think of the salary cap, and that is if you have a chance to improve your team, Mike, even if it's just slightly in a salary cap world, you have to do it. A lot of GMs don't, but Tulsky is one of those guys that it's if I can improve this team, it doesn't matter. I'm going to improve this team. Yeah, I mean, his motto is he hasn't done his job until the 20 players who they dress are the best 20 players in the National Hockey League. So I wouldn't say the word many, but I think if you've learned anything from what this group has done with Eric as the general manager, they'll take big swings. They'll try to make the ad that's out there to make them better. And it's the margins now. And I'm glad that you brought up a player like Bradley Nadeau. They've got young guys now in Chicago who, they're trying to win the Calder Cup, which would be amazing if they could to do the double. But they've got young guys who are hungry, who are pushing the guys in the NHL for spots. And I just don't think that they're ever satisfied. And, we'll see how this offseason is going to play out. But I can assure you that this group isn't just going to sit on their hands and party all summer, at least in the front office. They're going to be looking at ways to, how can we add to this team? What can we do? What was missing that could make us even more of a machine than what we were for this season? How long do you think Tomas Hertl will have nightmares about Bussy?
Until he wins another Stanley Cup, right? Isn't that going to be the only way you exercise those demons?
Holy jeez, what a performance! What a great story. I'll tell you, I've been saying this, all last night and all today for anyone who will listen to me. I always say to myself, it's not going to happen to me in the Stanley Cup final. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to fall for it. And that's the cutaway shot to the parents and the wife. And I'm always nope. I got to harden my heart, and I've seen it a million times, and it's the same thing every year. But when I saw the cutaways to Bussy's folks and his wife as well, just living every single emotion that every family member feels when the puck enters the goaltender's zone, I fell for it again. Hook, line, sinker. Mom's crying. Dad's got a tear. Wife's going crazy. Do you have a thought on the Bussy story?
It's you try to sell this to Hollywood, and they're like, no, we don't make scripts like this anymore. That's the story. His family is so nice. And, for him, I think the one thing that we take for granted is he was 27 years old, Jeff. So he wasn't a young guy, and he wasn't starstruck by the moment. Like, he put in his time. He put in his time in Providence, and, he won down there. He basically, if you take a look, he won everywhere that he was at, like regular season wins. And then what he did this year to backstop this team with 31 wins in the regular season. And how many guys do you know can sit for 54 days and then okay, we're going to put you in the Stanley Cup and go win it for us? I do think, and that's the other part when you talk about when the series changed, when Brandon Bussi came in that third period in game number 3. And I thought it was genius of Paul Schoenfelder, the goaltending coach, and Rod Brind'Amour to don't yank Freddie in the middle of a period. You start the period with Brandon and give him a chance to get accustomed to it. But everything for him is a learning experience, wins and losses and, bus trips and plane rides. He just soaks it all in, and he transfers it to the ice. He's got this great demeanor, and his dad, it's funny, his last night, his parents come up to me on the ice, and his dad is like, I need to meet Trip Tracy because I want to talk goaltending with Trip. And I think that sums it up perfectly, Jeff, what it is. And much like Greg, I have to catch a bus to get to a plane. So they will leave me here. They will leave me here in Vegas. But I got time for one more.
Okay, one more quick one here. I want to ask about this. I have a soft spot in my heart for players that go down to play in the ECHL and make their way back up. We just talked about Bussi. I also have a soft spot in my heart for guys that play junior C hockey in Ontario. And I think of Sean Walker, who, as I grabbed the sheet last night at the end of the game, 23 minutes and 50 seconds, leads all Carolina Hurricanes in ice time, playing at Bowling Green, didn't have a contract. I think he met his agent at a funeral, who knew Rob Blake with the Los Angeles Kings, a Flyer there. Next thing you know, he's with the Hurricanes, and now he's a Stanley Cup champion. Before you get to the bus, a quick thought on Walker.
Most unsung member of this team. And I'll go back to the start of this season when Jacob Slavin plays 2 games and then he misses a good majority of it. He only played 40 games this year. Sean Walker went from playing about 17 minutes a night last year for Carolina to about 21, 22 minutes a night. Yep. He's physical. He blocks shots. He's quiet. He doesn't complain about his job. He's a great skater. And again, I can put Jalen Chatfield in that box too, Jeff, if you want great stories.
Waivers.
Of guys who had to earn it. And you talked about, young guys, hungry guys to win. I think the teams need to have guys who had to fight to get to the NHL. That it wasn't they were the number 1 pick in the OHL. They were the top recruit. You have guys in that locker room who do not take being an NHL player for granted for 1 second. And Sean Walker, I could have easily said for the regular season, the points weren't there, but he could have been in the MVP candidacy for the team just because of the minutes and how he plays. And he plays every night and he's available. And he's just a hell of a hockey player. And you saw in this series, Will Carrier gets big hits, but Sean Walker, when he hits and when he's physical on that back end, he was a difference maker in this series.
He was. Listen, tell Mike Sunheim I apologize for keeping you long. If that's who's getting you to the bus here, you be good. Safe travels, and listen, always great catching up. And congratulations to you and the entire Carolina Hurricanes organization.
Same, Jeff. Appreciate it, and let me know when I can really start enjoying this, because it's all surreal right now with what's going on. And I'm working on about 9 minutes of sleep, which is fun too.
That's about 9 minutes more than you probably should have. What's wrong with you? Come on, let's go. Endurance test. Okay, but always appreciate it. Thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate this one. Congratulations.
You got it. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you.
There he is. Mike Maniscalco is the play-by-play voice of the Carolina Hurricanes. Going on 9 minutes of sleep. Attaboy. At that point, why would you even take the 9? Why would you even, Zach, at this point, just say I'm going to go for it and I'm going to power through. I'm just going to power right through. How many times is this going to happen to you?
Yeah, well, that's what anybody I was asking to come on the show today who was out there, I was like, if they're involved with Carolina, there's a chance these people are just going to tell me, I can't make it. Politely, not for me today. And Mike's like, yep, I'm in. I'll do it. I'm like, all right. Okay, thank you.
So the last time, hang on, let me grab it here. So the last text that I got from someone there with the Hurricanes was 5:07 a.m. You send your text there, and the last one was 5:07.
I got one at 6:30.
Not bad. Not bad. So God's flashlight is coming on at that point. Here comes God's flashlight. Okay, let's have a look who's still up here. Oh, look at you. Oh, you're still. Oh, I'm going back to the hotel now.
And I looked and I was like, okay, wow, what a night. Honestly, I think fair enough awesome. Though.
I feel the same way like every year. Like there's a lot of players on every single team. Like if Vegas would have won the Stanley Cup, there's a bunch of people there that I would have been happy for too. Right? Like it's the wonderful thing about being a sort of team neutral person. And like I'm happy for the Hurricanes. I'm really happy that they won. I'm happy for like a lot of people that I really cheer for. Just like in Vegas, there's a lot of people in that Vegas Golden Knights organization that I really cheer for and I really want to do well. For me, it's the best way to watch hockey. I know it's not for everybody. I get it. Like I know that I understand with you with that team. So I understand. I just find that, and I've been this way since probably some point in my late 20s, early 30s probably. I just find it a really fun way to watch hockey. I just cheer for people. There's a lot of really good people that I'm really happy for with that Carolina Hurricanes team, but I would have felt the same way for a lot of people with Vegas.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I get what you're saying. I obviously
you couldn't do it though because like
allegiances to a team.
But the thing is, like, I will never know what it feels like to have that. Like my team won the Stanley Cup. I will never. I understand that's the trade-off that I make. Yeah. Like that's the Faustian bargain that I make here. I will never have.
I also may never know that either.
Well, you may never know. Trust me. Like, what's the line? They haven't won it in color yet. They only won the Stanley Cup in black and white.
List them off. There's a million of them. Yep.
I know. Since a drunk Clarence Campbell came out wheeling out the Stanley Cup, drinking Harvey Wallbangers all day. What did you make of this? What did you make of the last game? What did you make of last night?
That was Carolina putting their foot on Vegas's throats and saying, that's it. Like, this is our game.
Yep.
Then you can try as you will, but if it's not getting through the forwards we have here from lines 1 to 4, then you're going to have to get through the defense. And if you can't get through them, then you're going to have to get through Brind'Amour, who was out of his mind again last night. He had some help, a little crossbar action. I think he's probably giving that thing a kiss. And...
So shots that went high? Well, don't even count a shot. I'm talking like a goalie here. Oh, you want us to stop the shots to go wide now, too? Oh, okay.
Right. Sure. I guess to that point, then he had some help from Jack Eichel, who missed the net, as if you want to put it that way.
That crossbar, man.
It was just a complete team effort. And the other thing I noticed, by the way, Jeff, last night in that game was through the lineup, how committed everybody was to playing the exact same way, which I know is just like a very obvious statement of that Carolina Hurricanes team. But last night, by the time they got to the second period, it was pucks in the zone, advance it up the wall, nothing goes to the middle, out into the neutral zone. By the time we get to the neutral zone, we cross the line, we put this thing into Vegas' zone, and then we forecheck like hell. And you make their lives hard. You didn't always come up with the puck, but it was exhausting for Vegas that entire time. The second they got into Carolina's zone, it just turned back around, back to their own end, and they're like, we got to go get this thing again. And we got to bring it back again. And it was the entire game from lines 1 through 4. It was one of the more impressive games I've seen from a team all the way through in a playoff game, let alone Stanley Cup final.
You know what I see when I watch the Carolina Hurricanes play? Bad information. That team is better than any team in the NHL, player to player, at giving out bad information. So, and you look at, I'll take a player like Shane Gostisbehere, for example, on the power play. How many times did we see Gostisbehere make that pass to Seth Jarvis on the left side for the one-timer? And it's the same thing every time. Right before he makes that pass, it's a fake shot. Like, everything has an element of deception about it before the play is actually made. Whether it's the passing or the shooting. Like, here, if you got 2 seconds. So I was texting with an NHL player last night about the first goal. Hang on, let me find it here. Here we go. About the fast goal, about the first goal, the Taylor Hall goal. And this is what this player sent me. That low bottom hand and the recoil on the shot for that goal is all world. More about beating the goalie to his spot than creating max power through the shot. Nasty look. See how the stick for Hall comes back to his body instead of where he'd get all lungy and over his right foot. It's like a pitcher when they, quote, pump the finish versus just throwing. There's a little wrist coil, and then you pop into the puck. There's a little separation and click versus just a flex and whip it. The puck leaves the stick earlier. It's just beating him to the spot. He doesn't lean on it over his right leg and just use the stick for a whip. I like the way he puts it. There's a little click and the puck leaves the stick. Watch it again. Click.
Yeah.
How many guys would just try to wire it?
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. I mean, look, I will also say, not to take anything away from Taylor Hall.
Taylor Hall.
It is Taylor Hall, but also probably one Carter Hart should be having there.
Not as bad as one of the Svechnikov goals, but I know what you mean. I know what you mean. There was room there. There was, when I saw that, I'm like, are we in for like a long night here with Carter Hart, and he's going to make the skate of shame to the bench? Like, oh man, are we going to see Aiden Hill? I would love to have seen it just to hear Johnny Lazarus's question to John Tortorella in the post game about Aiden Hill. Do you think you may have gone to Aiden Hill earlier, Miss? By the way, can I just mention, it's not hard to be a decent human being. So what Rod Brind'Amour did for Johnny Lazarus, I thought was a thing of beauty and was a thing of grace, and shows how simple it is to be a decent human being, to respect that you're not the only one doing a job here. I got a lot of time for John Tortorella. I think at his heart, John Tortorella is a really good person. But I really didn't like the way that he handled, which I think was a very legitimate question by Johnny Lazarus. Like, sometimes you got to get out of your own head and understand this person is trying to do a job too. Yeah. And they don't need your antics. Okay, I get it. And listen, Johnny turned it into something ultimately positive for him. Yeah. And the way that Rod Brind'Amour treated Lazarus at the next presser, how simple it is to be a decent human being. And I have a summation of the series. Hang on. I have a lot of time for him. I think that what John Tortorella has gone through, and everything, like his love of dogs, situation with his son serving, like all of it. I have a lot of time for John Tortorella. That wasn't one of his finer moments with Laz.
No, definitely not. But I think it's also just kind of like a summation of what the series was in a lot of ways too. You guys outlined it throughout the course of the show today, whether it was Wardo bringing it up or Wish talking about the construction. You guys talking about they go out and get the shiny toy, they get the best player available. They don't care. They pick up the superstar. You know, they'll cut you out from behind, they'll stab you in the back to get rid of you. It doesn't matter. They don't care. It's the ruthless pursuit of the Stanley Cup, and Torts, not doing the media avails and all that stuff. But like, they're the big bad Vegas Golden Knights, and on the other side, it's like this team who has been trying for years to get through, and Rod, who they won't give up on, and like this nerd. I don't know, like that. It's not a nicer way to put it. Don't say it demeaning either. But like this, like little nerd who doesn't fit the hockey world, and Eric Tulsky, who's behind the operation in Carolina.
Look, man,
and then it's just like a team.
It's not just Tulsky. There's other stories here too. Once upon a time, it was Tyler Dello from MC79 Hockey, right? Like when you look at like whether it's like Tim Barnes or Sonny Mehta or Dennis King is another one who used to write for MC79 Hockey. He's a scout with them now. Ellen Etchingham, to me, was one of the most brilliant hockey writers I ever read. She had a blog called The Theory of Ice. I never missed one. Unfortunately, when she took the job scouting with the Carolina Hurricanes, she had to collapse the blog. I miss that like crazy. I wish I would have saved all of them. I think she's one of the most brilliant writers I've ever read. And she came to hockey late. okay, like really, really late, and came at it with like a genuine curiosity. And she scouts for the Carolina Hurricanes. Like what Tulsky has done is put together a lot of both women and men from different walks of the hockey world and brought them all together, thinking that if everybody thinks the same, we're not going to get anywhere. Michael Franti always, he broke up one of his bands, Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy, because when he said, the minute that everyone's chanting, no one's thinking. So he said, the minute I hear chanting, I'm out. Broke up the band. The minute everyone's chanting, no one's thinking. And what Tulsky's done is put a bunch of thinkers around him from different walks of life. There's plenty of traditional hockey guys that are around there too, but it's a chorus of other people at the same time. And what it does is it allows the best ideas to rise quickly and disperse efficiently. And I think if there is one lesson from the Carolina Hurricanes, it's that. Different voices around the table from unlikely places. You don't all have to come from one single place with one single way of thinking. It's a lot. The irony of all of it is a lot of them came from the Edmonton blogosphere.
The irony of it is a lot of them actually came from a very similar place.
They all came from but like there was this like hothouse of different ways of thinking and measuring the game too. Tulsky himself. Anyhow, we got a couple of things here I still want to get to. The segment's a presentation of the Ninja Crispy Pro Countertop Glass Air Fryer.
Get faster, crispier results at home or on the go with legendary Ninja air frying power. Prep, cook, serve, and store in non-toxic, clean, crisp glassware. Get more out of your air fryer with the Ninja Crispy Collection.
Shark Ninja is elevating the air fryer experience. The Ninja Crispy Pro is a family-sized cooking system that comes with a 6-quart, 2.5-quart glassware, storage lids, crisper plates, and modular base for any occasion. The clean, crisp glassware is designed for non-toxic cooking and storing. Go from frozen to crispy with the thermal shock-resistant clean, crisp glassware. The Ninja Crispy Pro is powerful. It's an 1,800-watt air fryer that can cook a 7.5-pound chicken, feeding up to 10 people. It's customizable with 6-in-1 functions: max crisp, air fry, bake, roast, recrisp, and dehydrate. For more information on the Ninja Crispy Pro, there we go, visit the link in our description or go to sharkninja.ca. Carolina Hurricanes are Stanley Cup champions. You know, one of the things that I wonder about is I read off a sort of list of different thinking people in the Carolina Hurricanes organization, much like we're seeing with the Florida Panthers right now, who most recently won the Stanley Cup the last 2 seasons. At what point do other teams come for their personnel? Now, the Nashville Predators, during their general manager search, asked the Carolina Hurricanes to speak to Eric Tulsky. It was denied. But at what point do people around the NHL start saying, what's going on there in Carolina? And should we look to bring some of their people in here? Whether it's managers, scouts, whomever.
Scouts?
How do scouts? It sounds like Reggie Dunlop. Scouts. At what point does the rest of the NHL say, we need some of that over here? We need some of that thinking over here. Sonny Mehta just ended up in New Jersey, right? Yeah. Like he was absolutely crucial to the success of the Florida Panthers. You know, there's a lot of other Florida Panthers, front office people that you continue to hear, interviewing for jobs, because people recognize like what they're able to put together. So let's get us some of that. I wonder if they start to do the same thing with the Carolina Hurricanes. Would only make sense. Would only make sense. Yeah,
I got to imagine that's going to start happening here pretty quickly. I think that this is you just saw pieces of it, like what you just pointed out with Sonny Mehta and what's happening with the Florida Panthers, and you see different teams starting to look and be like, okay, maybe we should incorporate this more, maybe we should lean more heavily on that. And then you see a team that more or less is kind of the face of it. With Tulsky being the GM of it, it's the analytics team. When people see that, You know, I remember when, like my first sense of when this was happening, and this is a reality in the NHL, for me personally, I'm just speaking to my experience, it was probably before this, but the Copycat League was when the LA Kings had won. And then everyone was like, oh my God, we need to be built like the LA Kings. We need to be huge. We need to beat the hell out of people. Like, we need to do that. That was my first realization of it. Like, wow, everyone just copies each other. That's what the NHL is, and I've learned every single year since then that that's not unique to that situation. That is how it works every time.
You know how you win the Stanley Cup? There's not one way you win the Stanley Cup, but there is one sort of constant through all of it, and that is be healthy.
Yeah.
Be healthy. Be healthy. By the time you get to the end. Like, you know, Edmonton, you know, going to continue to knock themselves around about losing to the Florida Panthers 2 years in a row, but like by the end they look like extras from the Thriller video. You know, this guy's playing on one leg. This guy can't squeeze his stick. This guy's not available. This guy's got a concussion. You know, this guy's got like 1 foot in the coffin and 1 foot on a banana peel. Like all these different cliches. Like, yeah, it's like, and they're playing, but at the end of it, like, be healthy. Like when Vegas beat the what happened to your lights? You got to pay your bills. What's happened to your light?
My light just turned off there.
Doesn't like you.
The charger just fell out of it, so that's why.
Wow.
Hold on.
How's the new place working out over there?
There you go.
But you know what I mean? Like there's no one way to do it. The Carolina way is not the Florida way, is not the Vegas way, is not the Tampa way, is not the Colorado way to win the Stanley Cup. There's a lot of different ways to do it. And to the previous point, like Brett Peterson's it's gonna continue to get interest. Right? And Paul Krapelka is going to continue to get interest. I just wonder at what point do we start to see, again, whether it's managers or scouts, start to curry interest. Like, how do they do things over there? How do they do things in Carolina? We'll see.
But I also think that there's part of how do they do things and how can we change it? That's what teams need to be thinking. Like, not that we can, not looking at it and thinking, oh, this thing is flawed, but how can we take this and make this better? Because that one for them, but we can't do a copycat of that situation here. We need to evolve off of whatever it is that they're doing or we're doing, because nobody should be looking at going and saying, hey, we need to build like the 2026 Carolina Hurricanes. They should say, we need to build like the 2026 Carolina Hurricanes and adapt and improve.
The thing that I was getting to more so is the way that they think. As opposed,
for sure.
Again, going back to everyone's chanting, no one's thinking. If everyone's saying the same thing around the table, you got a bad table, right? If everybody agrees, you got a bad table. It's like Mike Pinball Clemens would always talk about. If you're the smartest guy in a room, that's your fault.
Yeah.
If you're the smartest guy in the room, that's your fault. When everyone's chanting, no one's thinking. It is the end of the NHL season. FanDuel, your home for all the action on the ice, as it has been every single game this year. From Blue Line to Bet Slip, FanDuel's got you covered with unique promos, live offerings, more features to let you play your game. If you miss puck drop, no sweat. With a live same-game parlay, you can build your bets up until the final buzzer. Download FanDuel Sportsbook today and play your game. And we remind you, please play responsibly. 18 plus, physically located in Ontario. If you have questions or concerns about your gambling or the gambling of someone close to you, please contact Connects Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. You doing odds on next year?
Come on, man.
What do you got? Oh, of course. Carolina. Wow. Listen, it's not like they're going to lose a bunch of guys other than by choice. Although I am curious about Freddie Anderson. Like, Bussy Kochetkov feels like the tandem. I don't think that Eric Tulsky necessarily is one of those, like, let's reward the guy that was been here for a long time and bring him back. Like, it does very feel much like move this thing forward. I was really happy Freddie Anderson, I think we all were, got his Stanley Cup. It's been a challenging career sometimes with health for Freddie Anderson, and then compound that this year with the injuries we found out, and also previously losing one of his friends and certainly agent in Claude Lemieux. So I think we were all feeling pretty good about Freddie Anderson when Jordan Staal passed him the cup. That was a beautiful moment. Avalanche, Tampa, Edmonton Oilers will have an interesting offseason as well. Does that seem a little bit low for the Florida Panthers? Are you all already saying that we've come back from Niagara Falls with the Florida Panthers and the honeymoon is over? Is that what we're saying here about the Florida Panthers?
Yeah, I mean, I probably would have them higher up and just move Tampa down. I probably would move Edmonton down as well there myself and have Florida ahead of those two teams, but everyone else there, Minnesota, Colorado, Carolina, I think is probably fair. But yeah, I mean, to your question, yeah, I think in a way it is. The only thing, or the big thing, I guess, here this summer will be what is happening with goaltending in Florida, because that's probably baked into the question and why they are where they are in your projections or FanDuel's projections for next season's Stanley Cup winner right now, because we don't know. we don't. Quite frankly, we don't know. So that's part of the problem, I think, with predicting what happens with Florida. But otherwise, team-wise, I'd probably have them above those two teams I mentioned.
Should be interesting. One thing we should mention as well, this Men's Health Week and Father's Day, take one simple step for your health, because caring for yourself today means more time, more memories, and more milestones. Healthy fathers help build healthier families. Get more time with the ones that matter most. Learn more at Movember.com, and more on that on this program tomorrow. Zach, you got a final thought on the season we just saw? We'll do more of it coming up throughout the week. Give a chance to digest it a little bit more. We barely touched on Vegas, but anything stand out for you from this past season? And congratulations to the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to you, because I think you really opened my eyes up about injuries and how much they play a factor in the Cup final and what happens as the series go on.
That's it.
Because I was always hesitant to agree with you in my head, thinking, you know what, it gets better as it goes along.
Nope.
That said, my one asterisk I will put on your argument, or me agreeing with your argument, is this has probably been the most enjoyable Stanley Cup finals I've seen in a very, very long time. Could it have been better if people were healthier?
Agreed.
Yes. So I will agree with you on that point. But this year's Cup final was spectacular. This was appointment TV every single time it was on. You could not miss it. And I've had a blast covering it and being a part of it here on the show. So, yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's that was a great Stanley Cup final. Again, to me, the two best that I saw were 87 with the Edmonton Oilers and the Philadelphia Flyers, and 94, the Rangers and the Vancouver Canucks. Those two are the bar for me. This one didn't pass those two, but it was the first one in a long time that I've said, we're getting close. We're getting close. Well, you will need a Game 7 for it, because both those were 7-game series. But this one came close. This one did a real good swing at 87 and 94. We'll see. There's always next year.
I'm familiar with that statement.
Oh, no. You've probably said that one a couple of different times, I want to say. Thanks to Mike Maniscalco for stopping by, play-by-play voice of the Carolina Hurricanes. Thanks to Aaron Ward, Stanley Cup champion with the Carolina Hurricanes in 2006, who, as we mentioned, cites Bob McGill, and rightfully so, as his favorite hockey player of all time. Hope you can stick with us, because we're keeping the feed hot. The show's not going anywhere, not for a while anyhow. We still have a lot to get to, whether it's the draft, whether it's free agency, whether it's signings, whether it's trade drama. We do expect a particularly vibrant trade market this time around, so the show ain't going anywhere, even though the NHL season is over. And congratulations once again to the Carolina Hurricanes, your 2026 Stanley Cup champions. We're back tomorrow, 1 o'clock for The Sheet, right here on our Daily Faceoff YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. Hey, great job getting through all of it, both this podcast and the season. Talk to you tomorrow. Jeff Merrick along with you. I hope you enjoyed the program today. If you did, or maybe even if you didn't, they can't all be gems, folks. Please hit the subscribe button. Also a reminder, every morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, Johnny Lazarus, Colby Cohen, I call them the Impact Players. You might know them as a tandem that makes up the Morning Cup of Hockey. Also DFO Live at noon Eastern. This year, your host Tyler Yaremchuk alongside Carter Hutton. Full day's worth of programming right here on Daily Faceoff, your favorite YouTube hockey channel. And as a reminder as well, Zach Phillips, our producer here for The Sheet, said if you subscribe, he'll buy you a puppy. It's true.